Hello, bookworms! Today I'm going to be doing my July wrap-up. In July, I read a total of 9 books, so it's a pretty good reading month. As I've said a few times, I've got tons of commuting time, and it's just been really easy to bang out some books. So I'm kind of really excited for August because I have a very ambitious TBR, but that's going to be in another video, so I guess I should just stop explaining that right now and get into my wrap-up. The first book that I read in July was The Kiss of Deception by Mary E. Pearson. I got confused because the sequel also came out this month, which is called The Heart of Betrayal. I really liked this book. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I had a few issues with it. I wasn't as into it as a lot of other booktubers and bloggers seem to be, but I thought that it was a really inventive way for a story to be told, so I definitely gave her a lot of credit for that. It's about a girl who runs away from her wedding day, and it's told from her perspective, the perspective of the prince who goes after her to try to find her, and the perspective of an assassin who's sent to kill her. But for about 75% of the book, you don't know who's the prince and who's the assassin, so it can get a little bit confusing at times, switching perspectives and not necessarily knowing who is who. But it did make me want to go back and reread and see all of the little things that they were doing once I found out which guy was which. I also thought that the world building was really good, and I liked the setup, so I feel like I'm going to enjoy the second book even more because I'm really looking forward to getting into some of the mysteries about the world that Leah is in. She's just a really, really awesome protagonist to read about. She's super intelligent and strong, and she's everything that I like in a main character, so 4 out of 5 stars. The second book that I read this month is Armada by Ernest Cline, and unfortunately, this just did not live up to my expectations because I'm a huge Ready Player One fan, but Armada was just not as good. It really wasn't. It was very derivative of other works. The story was just unoriginal, and while it was sort of enjoyable to read, it was a very fast-paced read, it just wasn't something earth-shattering, which I was hoping for. And also I felt like there were just way too many pop culture references in here. He didn't really strike a balance between storytelling, original storytelling, and referencing just strange past space things. So it was just too much for me. He just needed to kind of cool it with the references, and it didn't happen. So it was okay. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. Really wish that I could have given it 5, but maybe his next book will be better. The next book that I read was a guilty pleasure read, and that is the first book in the Pretty Little Liars series by Sarah Shepard. I think everybody pretty much knows what Pretty Little Liars is about. I gave this book 3 out of 5 stars. It's very different from the television show. I found that I'm not necessarily enjoying it as much as the TV show because all of the main characters are kind of just horrible people, so I don't really like it as much, but I'm still going to continue with the series just because it's so easy to read, and it's just interesting to see the differences between the two. I wouldn't be surprised if I got bored with it at some point, and definitely don't read all 16 books because that seems like overkill, but for now, I'm just having fun with it. The next book that I read was so good. I read Mistborn by Brandon Sanderson, and oh my god, this book was mind-blowing. It was so good. I'm so in love with the main character Kel, and also Vin. The two of them were just such a great team, and I really, really loved seeing everything that they went through in this book. It was very politically driven, which I wasn't necessarily expecting, but I love the way that magic is in it, the use of the metals, and oh my gosh, it was just so amazing. So I absolutely gave this book a 5 out of 5 stars, and I cannot wait to continue with the series. And I'm so excited that there's a spin-off series too, because I just need to read every Brandon Sanderson book in the world. The next book that I read this month was Daughter of Deep Silence by Carrie Ryan, and this book was, I think it was sold as Titanic meets Revenge. It was a revenge story about this girl who was on a cruise ship, and her and 2 other people were the only ones that survived, but the other 2 people are completely lying about what happened. So she devises this whole plan, she's super meticulous with all of her notebooks and all of her notes and everything throughout the years, and she goes back to the town that they're living in 4 years later, and she sets out to find out the truth. It's absolutely a page turner, and the way that she describes being shipwrecked was just like, oh, like I can still vividly picture some of those scenes, and I never want anything like that to happen to me. But I really enjoyed this book, so I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book that I read was also amazing, and that was Tiger Lily by Jodi Lynn Anderson, and this book is inspired by Peter Pan. It is Tiger Lily's story, and it's told from Tinkerbell's perspective, so it's definitely different than anything that you would ever see. And while there is the romantic aspect between Tiger Lily and Peter Pan, it's so much more than that. It really is like Tiger Lily's coming of age story, and it's really engaging, really interesting. Definitely got me into a character that I hadn't necessarily known too much about, and it just also like explains some of the things. She did age the characters slightly, so they are a little bit older in this book than they are in the actual Peter Pan story, but oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. I absolutely loved it, so I gave Tiger Lily 5 out of 5 stars. Another amazing book. I read Open Road Summer by Emery Lord. This is the first book of hers that I've read. I was trying to debate whether I should read this one first or The Start of Me and You first, because I know that that was written first even though it was published second, but I decided to read them in the order that they were published in. So I'm on like a major Taylor Swift kick, so I feel like that also contributed to why I enjoyed this book so much. It follows a country singer named Dee and her best friend Reagan. Reagan's really like the main character, and they set out on tour for the summer for Dee's summer concert tour. They travel on tour buses across the United States and make stops in all different cities. I loved the friendship between them, and then there's also like an amazing romance aspect to the book, and like the boy in this book, he actually competes to be my like #1 book boyfriend with a teen from Anna and the French Kiss. He's like, oh my gosh, I just love him so much. My only criticism with this book is that while it is a road trip book, there wasn't any sightseeing really. So even though they're stopping at different places within the country, it doesn't necessarily talk about anything like in those places. It's much more about character development, and I thought that that was also like a very nice correlation, that they were traveling to different places and also like progressing themselves as people as they were on this trip. So it was just really good overall. Reagan is a little bit snarky. I thought that she was going to bother me initially, but she is a really interesting character because she recognizes a lot of her flaws, and the whole reason that she goes on this trip is because she is determined to change them for the better. So I think that's always great, like somebody that's trying to just do things better. But I gave Open Road Summer 5 out of 5 stars. Next, I read the next Pretty Little Liars book, #2, which is, I totally flipped them. So this is actually the first book, and the book that I showed before was actually the second book. Oops. But I'll just keep holding this. And I have the same things to say for this. These are terrible people. I would never want to know or be friends with any of them. And I can only imagine what's going to happen from here. #2 had an insane ending, like completely different from the TV show. So if you like the TV show and you have not read the books because you don't feel like reading the same thing, you won't be, so feel free to do so if you choose. But I gave the second Pretty Little Liars book also a 3 out of 5 stars. The last book that I read this month is The Wicked Will Rise by Daniel M. Page, and this is the sequel to Dorothy Must Die. I don't want to give too much away because it's the second novel in a trilogy. There's also like a ton of novellas. I really did not like this book as much as I liked the first book, unfortunately. I only gave it a 3 out of 5 stars. I felt like there were a lot of pacing issues within the book. The ending was different than I was expecting, which is why I gave it 3 out of 5 stars instead of 2 out of 5 stars, but it really just was not holding my interest like the other one. I am going to be continuing on to see how she wraps up the series, but it's definitely not like something that would ever be at the top of my reading pile, which is a shame because the first one was really good. So those are all of the books that I read in July. Again, 9 books in total, not too shabby. I'm really looking forward to getting into August because we have Booktubeathon coming up, and on top of that, I also have a ton of other things that I want to read. So yeah, I will see you guys soon with a new video. Bye!